People often overlook that behind the jokes, the Jerry curl, and the distinctive voice, Eazy was nothing like the light-hearted caricature some remember. MC Hammer, one of the few who worked alongside him, made that clear. When they appeared together on the 1990 track We're All in the Same Gang, surrounded by West Coast legends like Ice-T and Tone Loc, Hammer understood that Eazy didn't need to posture or prove anything. His reputation spoke for itself. Hammer didn't need to hire muscle, and neither did Eazy. Both came from environments where credibility wasn't advertised. It was established through lived experience. Eazy wasn't imposing in size, yet everyone who met him remembers the same thing. He carried a quiet confidence that made people pay attention. Friends say he was calm, always smiling, and strong enough, physically and mentally, to hold his own in any situation. Those who spent time with him insist that he wasn't someone you could push around. Even in casual horseplay or wrestling, he was surprisingly tough. His respect in Compton and the industry wasn't bought or manufactured. It was earned. In the 90s, many rappers seemed fearless on record, but certain figures changed the energy of the room just by walking in, Suge Knight being the most infamous example. Tough artists suddenly remembered other appointments when he showed up. Yet even with someone like Suge, many believe Eazy wasn't the type to be pressured into signing something he didn't want. Eazy was far more than the humorous persona fans saw on TV. He was a strategist, a businessman, and someone who commanded genuine respect. The people who knew him best still speak of him with admiration and a clear understanding that his true presence went much deeper than his image suggested. Eazy E was the rare artist from that era who didn't just stand his ground against Suge Knight. Some insiders even say he was ready to make the first move if things ever went too far. And honestly, based on Eazy's connections and the people who rode with him, that doesn't sound far-fetched at all. Suge once tried to tear apart Eazy's entire label, and Eazy openly said he was rebuilding with full force, ready to fire back. But before diving into the Suge Knight drama, you have to understand what made Eazy so dangerous in the first place. Nobody took him seriously at first. Most rappers with street backgrounds wanted you to see it the moment they walked into the room. They talked loud, surrounded themselves with crews, and made sure you knew who they were connected to. Eazy wasn't built like that. He sat back quietly, looked relaxed, and had a smile on his face. If no one told you otherwise, you'd never know he had serious backing. When Eazy was asked if he was a gangster, he simply said he wasn't anymore, not because he had changed his stripes, but because he had evolved. And the truth is, the more people underestimated him, the more leverage he had. Once the industry realized he had influence, respect, and real muscle behind him, the entire tone shifted. MC Hammer recognized that long before anyone else. And the funny thing is, people underestimated Hammer the same way. On TV, he was the dancing superstar with corporate sponsorships and flashy outfits, but behind the scenes, he was not to be crossed. Hammer came from a respected Oakland clique, and the people around him weren't playing games. He didn't need to hire someone to handle a problem. His crew was ready, loyal, and capable. Artists who met him back then still talk about it. Redman once said Hammer showed up with an entourage over 100 deep. Men, women, dancers, street figures, everybody. Hammer might have looked friendly on the surface, but he was someone with real respect. And that's why his words about Eazy held so much weight. One real, one recognizes another. Hammer still speaks highly of Eazy decades later, honoring him publicly and giving him his flowers. That leads into the core of why Eazy had such a powerful presence in the industry. The network behind him. People like to say, Eazy was from Compton, but that alone doesn't explain it. What made him feared wasn't the city, it was the loyalty around him. Before he ever touched a microphone or became a label executive, Eazy already had serious street money. You don't stack that kind of cash without being respected, trusted, and surrounded by people willing to move for you. Even after NWA blew up, Eazy didn't hide behind gates in the suburbs. Sure, he had a house there, but he was still in the neighborhoods giving and getting love. Ask anyone from that era, and they'll tell you the same thing. Eazy could walk into any hood, blood, or crip, and be welcomed. That kind of respect doesn't come from records or image. It comes from the kind of presence that makes people stand with you even when you're not in the room. Eazy E's story takes an even sharper turn when you realize just how deep the tension ran between him and Suge Knight. At a time when nearly everyone in West Coast hip-hop gave Suge a wide berth, Eazy was one of the few who didn't flinch. Rumor or not, many people from that era say Eazy was prepared to deal with Suge directly if things escalated, and based on Eazy's circle and influence, that possibility didn't sound as impossible as it might today. Suge Knight carried a long-standing reputation for being untouchable. Death Row Records was run less like a label and more like a street organization, and Suge's ability to slip through serious legal problems only fueled suspicions. He faced accusations of assault, threats, and altercations yet managed to avoid major consequences, far more often than the average person. That, combined with the infamous Rampart corruption scandal in the LAPD, where some officers moonlighting as death row security were later implicated, gave rise to the belief that Suge had institutional protection behind the scenes. But Eazy never acted intimidated. In the Death Row Chronicles documentary, several people close to the situation claimed Eazy was angry enough to consider taking Suge out after Suge and Dr. Dre left Ruthless. Eazy openly said that Dre and Suge had tried to break down everything he built, and after investing money, time, and vision into Ruthless Records, he was furious at watching it fall apart. According to those accounts, Eazy seriously weighed the idea of retaliating before business associates allegedly talked him out of it. Eazy's reaction was so intense that, years later, fans revisiting old interviews still point out the cold, focused stare he had when speaking about Suge. That look, and the undeniable bad blood, helped fuel conspiracy theories after Eazy's death. Among the most sensational was the claim that Suge had something to do with Eazy contracting HIV, a theory that remains unverified and widely disputed. That rumor gained new life in 2003 when Suge appeared on Jimmy Kimmel Live. During a joking exchange, Suge mentioned a supposed new way of harming someone by injecting them with HIV-positive blood, and then referenced Eazy's passing. Many viewers took it as dark humor, but some felt the comment sounded too pointed to ignore. For years, most people chalked these stories up to conspiracy speculation or blame being placed on Eazy's lifestyle. But in 2015, Eazy's son, Marquise Young Eazy, reignited the discussion. He shared a clip of Suge's interview on social media, later deleted, and suggested that he had long believed his father's death wasn't natural. He claimed that Eazy didn't become ill until after a confrontation at the studio involving Suge, and hinted that Ice Cube might know more than he has publicly said. Eazy himself reportedly joked about the irony shortly before his passing, and BG Knockout later claimed in interviews that even Eazy found the idea unsettling. Others have pointed to Suge's later TV appearance where he joked about sticking somebody with a needle, which sparked even more suspicion among fans who were already uneasy about how quickly everything happened. Again, there is no verified proof that any of these things were connected, but when you combine heated rivalries, public taunts, and a sudden medical crisis, people naturally start filling in the blanks. The music industry in the early 90s was not a peaceful environment. Careers were built and destroyed in boardrooms, streets, and sometimes in the court of public perception. Artists who spoke out about ownership or refused to fold to corporate pressure were not always embraced. And in Eazy's case, he wasn't just independent. He was successful at it. He was a small, determined businessman who refused to sell off his label, refused to surrender his publishing, and refused to allow his legacy to be bought out. When someone like that dies suddenly, fans are left wondering whether the timing was just cruel fate or part of a much darker story that will never be fully uncovered. Whether the theories hold any truth or not, they reflect how deeply the rivalry affected the legacy of both men and how powerful Eazy's influence and reputation were during his life. After Cube and Dre walked away from NWA, the public narrative was that Eazy had teamed up with Jerry Heller to shortchange everyone. But as more people began speaking out years later, a different picture emerged, one where Eazy himself may have been getting played behind the scenes. According to numerous insiders, Jerry was allegedly siphoning money not just from the artists, but from Eazy as well. Before his death in 1995, Eazy had actually fired Heller and was reportedly telling close associates that he had uncovered financial manipulation within the company. Big G Knockout told Hip Hop DX that Eazy had documentation showing millions missing from Ruthless Records, which he believed Heller was pocketing. Another Ruthless affiliate, Tokare, echoed that sentiment, saying Eazy always felt Jerry deliberately created tension among the NWA members to keep control and keep everyone divided. Then, not long after firing Heller and confronting the situation, Eazy suddenly passed away. To his son, Lil Eazy E, that timing wasn't a coincidence. In a recent interview, he said he is convinced something wasn't right in the days leading up to his father's death. He mentioned strange behavior at the hospital, unexplained circumstances, and strongly suggested that Eazy had stepped on the wrong toes, especially after firing a powerful business partner. To Lil Eazy, it wasn't just about losing an employee, it was about a young black businessman from Compton rising unexpectedly high, owning too much, and threatening people who were used to controlling the game. What intensified the suspicion even further was Eazy's final recorded message from the hospital. In it, he urged young black artists to be careful about signing their lives away to what he called the institution. Throughout his career, Eazy didn't hesitate to call out shady contracts, fake industry figures, or the larger machine that pushed artists around. Many rappers of the era would have stayed quiet to protect their careers, but Eazy spoke up, even when it came at personal risk. That's part of what makes his legacy stand out today. Beyond the music, hits, and persona, Eazy represented independence and principles, a street entrepreneur who showed it was possible to build something powerful without begging for approval from the industry's gatekeepers. Some people believe that courage ultimately put him in the line of fire. Others see his death as tragic, but explainable, without hidden motives. So now the question is yours. Was Eazy simply caught in a corrupt system that chewed up artists and spit them out? Or did he uncover something that made him a threat to the wrong people? And do the theories surrounding his death have any real weight? Or are they just legends born from grief and unanswered questions? To understand the debate, you first have to look at the environment Eazy came from. The late 1980s and early 1990s were not just a groundbreaking era for hip-hop, they were a battleground. The industry was rapidly transforming from small regional labels into a billion-dollar corporate force, and artists who controlled their own catalogs, masters, publishing, and image were rare. Labels often dictated terms, owned the creative output, and treated artists, especially black artists, as replaceable and expendable. Eazy E was one of the very few who flipped that model. He didn't wait for a major label to approve his existence. He built Ruthless Records from the ground up, funded it with his own street connections, and created a pipeline from Compton to the global music industry without permission. That in itself was disruptive, and disruption rarely goes unchallenged. To many outsiders, Eazy was seen as a rapper who played tough. But to people who knew him, he was a businessman first and foremost, someone who quietly understood contracts, revenue streams, touring percentages, and ownership long before most artists even realized what those words meant. He didn't just rap, he signed talent. He didn't just make hits. He built systems to make sure the money from those hits came back to him instead of through the industry middlemen. NWA wasn't just a group, it was a business empire. And the uncomfortable truth is that a lot of people made a lot of money off Eazy's vision. Some became stars, some became moguls, and some built their own legacies. But Eazy didn't just make others rich. He maintained control of the catalogs and infrastructure that made them rich in the first place. That kind of power is something many executives in that era didn't like to see in the hands of a young, self-taught black entrepreneur from Compton. However, with power comes enemies and pressure. The breakup of NWA, the public feud with Dr. Dre and Suge Knight, and the legal battles that followed created a narrative that something bigger was happening behind the scenes. Many fans believe Eazy was targeted by the industry when the internal politics turned violent. A famous example is the story of Eazy allegedly being pressured, physically and psychologically, into releasing Dr. Dre from his contract. Suge Knight's reputation for intimidation was well known, and while people dispute the details of what truly happened that day, the story became a foundational piece of the legend. When people revisit these moments, they look at how Eazy stood firm and refused to be bullied. Even in interviews, he maintained that he lost some battles, but never bowed his head. Statements like that fed the belief that he had the kind of backbone that corporate forces didn't appreciate. Then came his rapid medical decline in 1995. To this day, the speed of his illness is one of the biggest reasons conspiracy theories took root. According to the official account, Eazy E was diagnosed with AIDS in February and died less than a month later. Many fans couldn't reconcile how a man who seemed strong, alert, and active only weeks prior could deteriorate so quickly. In the 1990s, understanding of HIV/AIDS and its progression was far less widespread than today. People associated the disease with long-term visible decline, and Eazy did not appear in public showing those signs beforehand. That gap in understanding created fertile ground for speculation. And once people began speculating, others began adding questions. Why were there no long-term symptoms discussed publicly? Why didn't more people around him test positive? Why did someone so powerful fall so quickly? Every question became fuel for rumor. Some fans point to interviews where Eazy's associates voiced doubt or confusion. Others mention comments from his children, friends, or artists who wondered if something else was at play. None of these claims are proven, but they became part of a cultural mythos, where the official story seemed too clean, too final, too neat. Add to that the wider social distrust of both the medical industry and the music business in Black communities at the time, and the theories became even harder to dismiss emotionally. When people don't trust the institutions giving the answers, they search for their own, and on the other hand, many experts and observers say the tragedy, while shocking, was medically realistic. HIV in the early and mid-90s was far more difficult to treat, and many people went undiagnosed until late stages, when symptoms became irreversible. People who contracted the virus but never tested regularly could live for years without visible symptoms and then decline rapidly once opportunistic infections took hold. Several doctors later explained that Eazy's progression, though swift, was not outside the range of what was medically possible in that era. From a clinical perspective, the official narrative is not impossible or even unusual. Still, legends don't grow in logic, they grow in emotional space. And Eazy left behind a lot of emotional space. Unanswered conflicts, rivalries unresolved, empire interrupted, legacy unfinished. When a figure like that dies abruptly, people seek meaning. They look for patterns. They attach symbolism to coincidence and purpose to tragedy. Was Eazy simply a victim of life's randomness? Or was his passing the result of forces larger than anyone could see? That is the tension that has followed his name for decades, and it explains why his story refuses to fade. What is undeniable is that his impact lives on. Artists today maintain their masters because people like Eazy showed that independence was possible. Black ownership in hip-hop became a realistic, powerful ambition because he proved you could walk into the industry without kneeling to it. Whether his final chapter was conspiracy or coincidence, the chapters he wrote before that changed the DNA of the culture forever. And maybe that's why fans still debate his death so fiercely, not because they are obsessed with how he left, but because of how powerfully he lived.